Now, I wanted to turn your attention to January 13th of 2015. Did you have an opportunity to respond to an 878 Oakland Drive?
Yes, sir.
Now, on that date, how can you kind of orient the jury? How far into your time as a crime scene technician were you?
I would have been 2 years into being a crime scene technician on that date.
What did you respond to? Why were you called to that scene?
So I was initially called to that scene called in as a shots fired call. And what that means is a firearm has been discharged, but no one has been hit or otherwise injured.
Do you recall around what time you arrived?
It was early in the morning. I'd have to reference my report to give you an exact arrival time.
Would referencing your report help refresh your recollection?
Yes, please.
Your Honor. I'm asking to approach the witness with his report.
Okay.
Once your memory's refreshed, before you answer, just let me know.
All right.
And I'll leave that up there in case we need it. But what time did you respond?
I got the call at 8:02 in the morning. It would have been right when I arrived at work, and I arrived there at 9:40 a.m.
Were you day shift back in that time frame?
That is correct. On that day, I was working the day shift.
And when you got there, was this a house, an apartment, a business? What was 878 Oakland Drive?
This was a residential home.
What did you see when you first arrived?
When I first arrived, I met with the officer on scene. I believe it was Officer Campbell who was on the scene. And I just saw a house. It wasn't until I stopped to inspect the scene that I saw anything else. But initially arriving on the scene, I saw a house with green trash cans in front of it.
Now, Your Honor, I am approaching the witness with what's been marked as 1 Delta 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 through 31 Delta Delta Delta. If any defense counsel wants to see.
In future, and to the extent possible, review the evidence beforehand.
The problem, Your Honor, is that what's being shared doesn't have exhibit numbers, so there's no way to cross-reference, for us to cross-reference.
All right, maybe y'all get together 10 minutes before we start and just say, here's my evidence for the day. Okay, I've seen it.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Handing the witness 1 through 31 Delta Delta Delta. And before you came in to testify, did you have the opportunity to review 1 through 31 Delta Delta Delta, those copies before you?
Yes, sir. I have a chance to review these photos.
And what are those?
These are photographs from the crime scene that I took.
And are they a fair and accurate depiction of the crime scene photos from January 13th, 2015?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, the state moves to tender into evidence State's Exhibits 1 through 31, Delta, Delta, Delta.
All right, admitted without objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Publishing State's Exhibit 1, Delta, Delta, Delta. Now, you had mentioned when you got there was that house with the green trash cans. Is that what's depicted in 1 Delta, Delta, Delta?
Yes, sir.
And that's the 878 Oakland Drive?
Yes, I believe there should be a photo with the address in here as well.
Publishing 2 Delta Delta Delta. Is this the roadway that the street and the surrounding area from where you responded to?
Yes, it is.
And I wanted to ask you, what was the Atlanta Police Department case number associated with this crime scene you responded to?
It would have been early in the year, so it would have been 15013, and the last four numbers would have been.
Do you need to refresh your report?
Yes, would have been 0459.
0459?
Yes.
So in total, can you say that one time?
150130459.
Thank you. Publishing 3 Delta Delta Delta. Can you describe for the jury what is depicted in this photograph?
So the previous photo we saw was of the roadway, and this is another photograph of that same roadway where I have marked using yellow evidence markers all of the points of evidence. In this case, I believe was shell casings.
So what do each of those placards represent?
Each of those placards would represent the location of a shell casing.
How many shell casings were on scene of this crime scene that you processed?
I believe there were 66 shell casings that I recovered.
And at the time that in your career, turning back to January 13th, 2015, was that number of shell casings low, average, or high for you as a crime scene technician at that time?
At this point in my career, this was the most number of shell casings I collected at a single scene.
And are the shell casings on this scene, are they concentrated or not concentrated at a specific area or location?
As you can clearly see, it looks to be two concentrations. One, is this a touch screen? Can I highlight?
It's unfortunately not a touch
Oh, okay.
screen.
Can you see the mouse?
We don't have like a laser pointer or anything yet.
Okay, as you can see, there's a concentration. Looks like it's in front of the green trash cans, and there's another concentration over here, further up to closer to where I'm standing from taking this photograph.
And is there any shell casings do any of the placards represent more than one shell casing?
Yes, to my recollection, placard 21 has 2 shell casings. I placarded them together because they were physically touching.
They were that close to one another?
Yes.
Publishing 4 Delta Delta Delta. Now, what is depicted in 4 Delta Delta Delta?
That is placard number 1, which is representing a shell casing. In this case, it is a rifle round. Rifle shell casing? Rifle shell casing, ma'am.
And your placards went from 1 to 65?
That is correct.
Publishing States Exhibits 5 Delta Delta Delta. Can you describe for the jury, one, what's depicted in 5 Delta Delta Delta?
This is what is known as a mid-range photograph. What this is this is not an overall photograph. It's closer. It's depicting evidence, but it's also depicting the evidence in relationship to where everything else is around it. So we're not seeing close-ups of individual evidence. We're seeing the evidence as they are in relationship to each other.
How many crime scene photographs did you take overall of the scene?
I'll have to reference my report.
You may.
286.
And do you take individual photographs of each placard?
Correct.
And I'm going to publish 6 Delta Delta Delta. Is this the next mid-range photograph that you were just describing?
Yes, sir.
And is this from placards 7 through 18?
Yes, they are.
All of which are shell casings?
Yes, sir.
Publishing 7 Delta Delta Delta. Is this another mid-range photograph?
Yes, sir.
And all of these thus far, what part of the location have they been in?
They've all been in the street, in front of the house.
Publishing States Exhibit 8 Delta Delta Delta. Can you describe for the jury where these shell casings are?
This would be the driveway.
Publishing 9 Delta Delta Delta. Is this another mid-range photograph of additional shell casings?
This is more of an overall photograph, but yes, it is a mid-range in the sense that you're showing the evidence 30 and 31 in relationship to where they are with the rest of the crime scene.
Publishing 10 delta delta delta. Can you describe for the jury what we're seeing here?
This is an overall shot of evidence placards that were, like I said, in front of the green trash cans in front of the house. It's just sort of an overall showing the whole layout of the scene.
And with these mid-range photographs, do you go through them in chronological order of the placard numbers?
I attempt to, unless there's some other circumstance in which I can't, but yes.
Publishing 11 delta delta delta. Is this another mid-size photograph?
Yes, this is a mid-range photo.
Going up to placard number 52. What's the last placard you see?
The last placard I see clearly is 52, yes.
Publishing States Exhibits 12 delta delta delta.
And this is what we call overlapping shots. The top of the last shot is in the bottom of this next shot, so we can overlap the various scenes so there's no missing sections. So this will go up to 59 then.
Publishing 13 delta delta delta.
Objection, Your Honor. Are we going to go over all of these photographs?
I didn't believe so.
Your Honor, there was initially 276 photographs. There's now 1 through 31 delta delta delta.
Can I overrule the objection? He's
thank
moving pretty quickly through it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, did you see different type of shell casings on this scene?
Yes, sir.
And were, in general, or what type of shell casings were there, if you know?
Predominantly, there were mostly rifle caliber shell casings. Rifle caliber shell casings. There were several handgun caliber shell casings as well, but the predominant were rifle caliber.
I'm going to publish 14 delta delta delta. And I want to also ask you, when you got to the scene, was anyone in that house?
No, not to this. Like I said, this was a shots fired. This is a scene where firearms were discharged, but no one was hurt or injured. And I believe Officer Campbell and Sane told me no one was home at the time of the shooting or the firearm being discharged.
Publishing 16 delta delta delta. Excuse me, 15. Now, once you took photographs of the shell casings, what was the next part of the crime scene that you went through?
Documenting damage to the residents and the property.
In crime scene technician speak, what do you classify damage as?
Defects from projectiles is how I would classify it.
And did you see any defects in 878 Oakland Drive?
Yes.
Now, can you identify for the jury any defects you see in 15 delta delta delta?
If you can I stand up?
You may. You may.
It's, you know what? Here's a pointer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So much.
And y'all can move if you need to see.
Yeah. So if you look right here, this is a defect in the house inside. This is also a defect in the house on the side. This is, I would have taken close-up shots of the defects, but this is sort of a mid-range overall shot of these defects.
Publishing 16, and if you don't mind, remain standing for me. Thank you. 16 delta delta delta. Can you show the jury if you see any defects in this photograph?
Yes, if you look right here, I don't know how well you can see it, but there is clearly a defect right here in this window. There's clearly a defect right here by the side of the door. There's another defect up in this window, and right here, you can see one right here that went through the window pane. Those are the only ones I see in this shot.
Publishing 17 delta delta. Oh.
I saw one more. It's just as I was right here as well.
And are these going, is there any order to when you are photographing, say, the outside of a home? Are you going left to right, right to left?
In this case, I would have been going left to right. You know, if I'm facing, I take my photos the same way you would read a book. So from your perspective, it's going left to right. So.
Publishing 17, Delta, Delta, Delta. Is there any defects in this photograph?
Yep, so there's the defect here in this window, defect here in this window, defects up here and here and here above the window, defects here, here between these two shutters. And you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 defects in this window right here from the scene.
Publishing 18, Delta, Delta, Delta.
This would have been an overall shot where I've now gone to the entire other side of the house. As you can see, we're seeing defects all along here. I believe there's even some right here in the gutter. And one right here in the edge of the window frame right here. You can see.
Publishing 19, Delta, Delta, Delta.
This is that same window that I was just pointing out where you can see the one in the window frame. Here's the 1, 2, 3. Here's the 2 between the shutters that you saw previously. This will be more of the mid-range shot that I was talking about earlier on, taking closer and closer photos of the defects.
Publishing 20, Delta, Delta, Delta. Is there any defects you see in this photograph?
Yes. As you can see, there's starting right here underneath the window. We're going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Now these might not be defects. These might just be construction, boxes, because this is where the utility line is. So they may have taken something on and off the box here, but these over here are the defects. You can tell by the irregular shaping pattern.
Publishing 21, Delta, Delta, Delta. Do you see any defects in this photograph?
Yes, sir. Two very clear ones right here.
Publishing 22, Delta, Delta, Delta.
This is over near the door. You can see very clearly the defect right there, as well as the defects that were over here that were part of this first window.
Now, once you take photographs of the outside of the home, do you proceed to go inside and take photographs?
I believe in this case we did go inside to take photographs. It's not always the case if we don't have access to the home for whatever reason, but I think in this case we did have access to the home.
Publishing 23, Delta, Delta, Delta.
So this would have had a close overall shot, but this would have been damage to the television screen inside the house.
And just to orient the jury, is this television screen, where is that in general in relation to the front of the house?
I believe if you are, let's do this from your perspective. If you are walking in the door, I believe the television screen would have been right here, perpendicular to the door. If I remember correctly.
Publishing 24, Delta, Delta, Delta. Do you see any defects in this photograph?
Yes, as you can see, this wall would have been perpendicular to the shots, so the defects would have become more elongated as they hit it at a steeper angle. So over here, you can see where the defects have started hitting the wall more straight on as a 90-degree angle. You can also see the damage to the clock face here where the defects, where rounds were hitting it.
Publishing 25, Delta, Delta, Delta.
This would have been where it went through this door frame right here and come out and left a large exit in this hole right here.
Publishing 26, Delta, Delta, Delta. If you see any defects.
This is that elongated round that I was telling you about. When a bullet hits something at a 90-degree angle, it leaves a very round hole. When it hits it at a much steeper angle, it leaves a much more elongated pattern of defect.
Publishing 27, Delta, Delta, Delta.
This would have been the window that is on the front of the house, and we are seeing it from the interior side.
Publishing 28, Delta, Delta, Delta. Is there any defects that you see?
Yes, sir. Right here in the fridge, you can see where the rounds have come through the wall, and they've hit the refrigerator right here and right here.
Publishing 29, Delta, Delta, Delta.
As you can see, the stove glass has been shattered, leaving all of the damage here.
I'm sorry, leaving.
Leaving all of this glass damage here.
Publishing 30, Delta, Delta, Delta.
These would have been more defects. 1, 2, 3, 4.
And publishing 31, Delta, Delta, Delta.
This is just pieces of wall and other things that have been blown out after the bullets have been hit. So usually this is the debris that comes from a round coming through an object and leaving holes in it.
Now, after you, thank you, you may take a seat.
Yeah. Your Honor, here's your
Thank you.
And Your Honor, may we keep that pointer?
Oh, okay.
I'll keep it and I'll need it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. After you walked through and documented the shell casings, the outside of the home and the inside, did you do anything with anything physically present on that scene?
The only thing I would have done on the scene after all of my documentation would be to collect the shell casings on the scene and take them with me back to the lab.
What is your process in general for collecting shell casings?
Shell casings are packaged individually, usually in small coin envelopes. They're about that big. They are written, the marker number and the time they are collected on the outside of the envelope, as well as any pertinent case information. Then they are all packaged together into a larger bag and sent. When I get back to the office, I will send them usually to the crime lab.
So you transport them from the scene back to somewhere in Atlanta Police Department?
Yes, it would have been the public safety annex.
And did you do that in this case?
Yes, sir.
And then after you transport the evidence, what do you do with the photographs that you took?
The photographs are I'm not sure if this is how it is because I've been with Atlanta for a while. But at the time, you would burn your photographs onto CD discs, place them into an envelope, and then send them to our photo lab division, who would then verify that your photo descriptions match the photographs that you have on the CD discs.
And after you finish processing the scene, do you capture what steps you took in any kind of documentation?
My report.
After you finish your report for this January 13, 2015 crime scene, did you have any other involvement with this case?
Not to my recollection.
One brief moment, Your Honor. Would the crime scene report have the same incident number as the Atlanta Police Department case number?
It should.
I don't have any further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.